Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack for Business podcast. Over 400 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game.
So, from the audience perspective, how can you use AI to grow your business without losing the human touch or burning out? And that's exactly what Jeff will be diving into here today. How to harness AI tools to enhance your business results without replacing the people behind the mission. If you've been overwhelmed by tech, unsure where to start with AI, or worried about staying true to your values while staying competitive, this is the podcast you want to listen to. Our guest today is Jeff Borschowa from Pharos Business. Jeff is a guide for visionary founders navigating the fog between hustle and harmony. A lifelong educator, strategist, and author of 100 plus books, Jeff helps entrepreneurs unlock bespoke clarity by combining aligned growth with augmented intelligence. He's the creator of the Pharos Effect and speaks on authentic leadership, sustainable success, and building business. Jeff, absolute pleasure to have you here. Welcome. And how goes your day?
Well, thank you for having me on the show, Bernie and Wayne. My day is going fabulous. I've already been up playing with AI for a couple of hours. I play word games, and AI is an amazing sparring partner. It helps me, as you'll notice from my bio, I love alliteration. So I tend to take everything I write and get AI to alliterate it for me.
So you're using AI on a regular basis. In fact, you're doing word games, which is really good. It's like honing your skill. It's almost like having a sparring partner, right? One of the like a martial arts dojo.
Absolutely.
What do people get wrong with the whole concept of AI? Like you're using it to help improve, to help deliver. What are businesses misunderstanding about AI?
Well, that's a great question. I use the concept augmented intelligence, which is my version of AI. I think what most people get wrong is they think that AI should replace me or that AI is there in spite of me. But what I look at is we have to have authentic intelligence first, because if the person at the keyboard is not intelligent in what they're talking about, they're just going to get amplified garbage coming out the other end. It's garbage in, garbage out. But if the person at the keyboard is brilliant, brilliance in, brilliance out. So what I see all the time is people taking shortcuts, treating AI like it's a fast order. You're going through drive-through and give me a Big Mac with a side of wisdom. You're not going to get that. But if you're an intelligent human being and you say, here's what I think about this topic, help me refine it, that's where AI becomes magical. And that's why I talk about augmented intelligence. It's not AI without the human, it's the human augmented with AI.
Sounds like you just defined the greasy spoon version of AI versus the proper meal.
Yeah. And honestly, everybody likes to eat sausage, but nobody wants to learn how it's made. With AI, you got to put a little thought into it.
So, one of the things you talk about is avoiding burnout. How does AI protect wellness overall?
Well, that's a great question, Wayne. One of the things I do is I have what I call a Pareto filter on my AI. I use the Pareto principle, and I'm prone to burnout. I think a lot of business owners are. I will ask AI to look at my to-do list and give me the top 3 most important things I have to do today. And then how can you help me get these things done? Rather than trying to do everything. And I think this is the greatest sin that most entrepreneurs, business owners commit, is they try to do it all without thinking about what they're doing. And I'll give you an example. I used to work 100-hour weeks, and I realized I was being lazy because I would just take whatever came at me and grind until it was done. And then next morning I'd wake up, do it all over again. What I wasn't doing was thinking about what I was doing, prioritizing. Some of it didn't actually matter. So what I do with AI a lot of times is I train it. It knows my biases. Bernie, you mentioned it as a sparring partner. I love the quote, iron sharpens iron. And so I've trained my AI to question me, ask me, sure you really need to do this? AI really helps me find that wellness bit because what I'm looking for is balance. The other thing that I discovered was I am neurodiverse. I have ADHD and autism. I don't fit most one size fits all models because I don't think that way. I don't act that way. So, what I've also done is I've gotten my AI trained to take generic advice and customize it for me.
I've been told a year ago when this was launched publicly, the first thing we did was use it like it was Google. And people like Bernie started putting in good process questions and changed the game. Can you tell me about how important the questions you ask are to the quality of the answers?
Absolutely 100% critical, garbage in, garbage out. So, again, a couple years ago, I've been playing with ChatGPT pretty much almost since the beginning. And what I'm seeing is people are evolving, and everybody seems to go through that first phase where they ask really terrible, stupid questions. I liken it to having an intern. If you walked up to an intern who just started and said, "Hey, go produce a podcast episode," they might ask some questions, but probably they'll go away, spin their wheels forever, come back, go, "I didn't get anything done." AI is just like that. If you don't give it good inputs, you're not going to get good outputs. And I think too many people approach it. I hear all the time, "Oh, I'm not tech savvy." AI is a communication tool. The quality of your communication determines the quality of your outputs. So, what I always do is I put in, here's what I'm thinking about, here's what I'm struggling with. How can you help me solve this problem better? And here's my secret. I always say, what questions do you have of me so that I can help you get a better response? And then I'll say, what questions should I ask you so that we get a better response? Once we've gone through those questions, I get an infinitely better response than, "Hey, write me a blog post about podcasting."
It's interesting. There are different areas, pockets of our life that have AI. The one where we're going, tell me a story or refine this. And then we have other devices that are always listening. Oh, the ones that are always listening, next thing you know, you see ads popping up on your thing going, what the heck? How did they know that I was thinking about getting a canoe trip to on Wayne's Lake so I can go fishing? You know, it's like they take the context. So when we're plugging into a prompt, it has no context, right? And then we provide the context. You're telling it what role to act. It's like writing a play, right? You know, say you're playing Hamlet, buddy. Remember that skull in your hand? It has a story behind it, right? Do you think we're going to be having the computer going, well, today I know Wayne's sitting in front of me and Wayne's got this on the go. He's got this plate spinning and Wayne's going to ask about a piece of work. Do you think that will be smart enough that it'll gather information and then Wayne has a query to propose, or he's worked on something and he says, listen, if I've just done a course, now I want to flush it out. Put some interactive modules in there. You see that happening?
I do it every day. And so I'll give you some context. First things first, people ask me, what's the number one advice you have about AI? A lot of people come to me and say, ChatGPT is stupid. It doesn't work. And then they tell me they're using the free version. I just want people to understand that the free version of ChatGPT is good, but it's a little like an over-caffeinated toddler who's got a crayon stuck up its nose. It's not always paying attention.
Yeah.
Now, when you go,
I'm visualizing that.
I don't know why, but that's how I describe it. The $20 a month version of ChatGPT is like having a PhD level peer at your disposal. So if you want to sit here and debate is ChatGPT any good or not, let's first make sure we're talking about the $20 a month or whatever it is today when this airs. I'm going to be honest, I don't understand why I would use the $200 a month version. It doesn't have anything that I can't get at 20. I will eventually probably upgrade to 200 just because it must be better. I don't know why. But for me, I get what I need out of the $20 version. You can give your ChatGPT background context in the setup and have it remember what you do. Now they've added some project stuff. What I do all the time, Bernie, and this is, I think, highly advanced. I have a custom GPT model that has my background, my voice, my outcomes, and it creates content based on what I'm looking for at that moment. If I need to shift gears, it's very different to say, okay, you're going to play a role from the Shakespearean world versus, okay, you're playing Hamlet. A lot of people say, okay, you're playing a Shakespearean role. Try to guess which role it is. AI is good, but if you give it more context, it will give you a better answer.
Is there any danger of checking out and letting AI replace you so that all of a sudden this entity is acting as you when you have no clue?
I don't think that's on the immediate horizon. For what it's worth, ChatGPT in particular, and I talk about ChatGPT the most because I'm a firm believer, learn one tool, learn it well, and then you can decide if you need other tools. I mainly write. So to me, ChatGPT is my go-to. But I think we're a long ways away. When you think about it, a lot of people think that ChatGPT thinks like we do. It's just a series of computations to say what's the most likely next word going to be. It just recognizes patterns really well, but it's not one of those things like a lot of people say, oh, what if somebody in a scam center in India, they search me in ChatGPT and they extract my soul? The processing power and the memory storage, it's currently impossible or very, very unlikely that would happen just because it takes so much to remember a very little amount of data. Full disclosure, I built my own AI model on my desktop computer, and a couple of things happened. Number one, my hard drive filled very quickly, and my motherboard got to dangerously hot levels because it takes so much processing power. The reality is, I think a lot of people have abdicated their souls to, and they said, AI, you can just do what your thing. But for me, I like to look at AI. I'm the adult in the room, and I guide it to refine my voice, not replace my voice.
It must be awfully warm or wearing that. Your business name, Pharos. That's an interesting name. I mean, we joked about pyramids when we started, and you said there's a better story to us. What is the better story?
Well, it's not a pyramid scheme, for the record. Pharos is the original lighthouse at Alexandria, and it's also the Greek word for lighthouse. Years ago, when we set up our business in 2016, we wanted something that symbolized vision, and our tagline is insight, clarity, growth. What I've evolved over the years is the Pharos effect. Most people go straight to busy. What we do is we start with insight. We look at what's important, what's the strategy. Then with that insight, we get into the clarity, which is where we're doing the right things. And then we work on the tactics that lead to growth. I had a client who said, stop thinking and give me something to do. So I went into ChatGPT and gave him a list of 100 to-do things. And I literally said, ChatGPT, I've got this client. He's driving me crazy. Here's the project we're working on. He wants to feel involved. Give me 100 busy work tasks. It did it. It was not kind. I was proving a point to this guy, but much to my dismay, he went, oh, thank you. Now I can relax. I have things to do. And that was a huge aha moment for me. And I think this is what I struggle with founders, entrepreneurs. They'd rather be busy than doing the right things. And this goes back a long ways. I think I read Stephen Covey back when I was in university. And, a lot of people want to be efficient. They don't ponder being effective. And so that's one of the things I teach all of my AI bots. Effective is doing the right things. Efficient is doing things right. And if you don't have both effective and efficient, you've got a lot of trouble. You can be really efficient doing completely ineffective things. That's kind of my weird take on the Pharos. I'm not here to tell people what to do. I'm just here to light out and say, here's where the pitfalls, the hazards are, and I'm going to help you navigate it.
people tend to gravitate to the sexy and understandable before the meaningful. And so everyone wants to talk chatbots so that you have people asking questions or answering questions in your name that may or may not be offering true value to your customer. Or even worse, you could be trying to be the customer and you find you're trying to a chatbot who accidentally pretends he's the consultant. How do you make sure that there are values behind all this technology?
Question of the day, Wayne, and I think that's the when people say AI is going to end humanity, I like to say, well, actually, humanity will end humanity because we're the ones who trained the AI. So it's going to sound trite, but garbage in, garbage out. One of the things I do, I'm not that big on chatbots yet. I see their value, but the problem with a chatbot is the person who's programming it has to understand the business, the client, and technology. They have to understand those three things and other things. They need some background and stuff. I get a lot of people who think it's as simple as, this is a common question, therefore this is a common answer. But then AI needs to understand that you, Bernie, and I might ask the exact same question with different language. So then you need variables and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's the heart of the programmer that determines the heart of the AI. When I build one of my custom models, every single one of them is seated with Bob Berg and John David Mann's The Go-Giver. So everything has to, and this is actually one of the tests. We have a quality control. Does this add value to the recipient from their perspective? And if it doesn't add value from their perspective, why are we doing it? The other thing, this is a little weird, but I bake in a little bit of Buddhism. So the concept of do no harm. And if I'm really stuck, I will bake in a little bit of Christianity and I'll say, what would Jesus do? Because if you want good customer service, why not look at historical figures, look at people that you would want your customers to encounter? So for the record, I also trained one to use the voice of Darth Vader. Not a good idea for customer service.
The transaction's short and the customer not coming back.
Yeah.
Unless of course you're on a battlefront, in which case that's the idea, right?
Yeah.
You're having a coffee, people coming back. I find it really fascinating, and it's my moment of epiphany here. You alluded to the word seated or seating,
Yeah.
and trained on. It's almost like if you were trained, to go to you went to college or university in one place, and usually when you go to get your master's, they tell you go to another facility, not because they didn't want to kick you out, but it just broadens your horizon. Or if you go to live in another country, and again broadens your horizon. And each area has its own flavor. Do you then, as the person building a specific type of chat or LLM for somebody, do you become the artisan? In which case, like, I'm gonna do a painting. I'll use certain colors, certain look. There's a wild difference between Rembrandt and Picasso, right? Or it's a 3D. What I'm getting at is, are you the artisan, and what is best copy then? Or is it just a total matter of what the person perceives as the end result?
Well, it's a funny question because I actually use Michelangelo and his statue David as an example. When asked how he carved David, he said, I just chipped away bits of rock and David revealed himself. I actually have a process when I build my AI models where I start with a broad, big piece of marble, and then I chip away the parts that don't belong until I end up with the model that my client wants. And I would say, I don't want to sound blasphemous, but I see myself as a creator. Read that into what you will. And my client becomes part of the building material But the reality is, at the end of the day, I am going to leave a footprint or a fingerprint or, a chisel print on the statue, whether I want to or not. But ultimately, it has to resemble my client. And that's the nuance and the artisan piece of it, is training AI how to be a responsible grown-up and to follow in the footsteps of its business daddy or mommy.
So Darth Vader, who needed that application? Sorry, I'm curious. Based on all cumulative information we just achieved, and I'm going gestalt on you here.
Yeah. So Darth Vader was me. And so when I first started with AI, I was practicing training them. And so I had a lot of fun. If you're really, really bored sometime, ask AI to translate your website into something Yoda would say. Or my favorite was Robin Williams at the height of his fanatic career in the 80s, when he was a little bit, let's just say, hyper. And so I like to play with the tone and the voice. And for me, it was like my own mixing board. I was learning the language differences. And so one of the things I was curious was, what would customer support look like if Darth Vader was in charge? Turns out, if you dare ask a question, he goes straight to force choking you. So I didn't get great responses. I just kept getting, I'm force choking you. And I was like, okay, dude, calm down. So it was just as a creator. And I think I never used to think of myself as an artist. I thought it was coding. But now I do see myself as an artist and a creator. And so I love to play with the materials to see what different outcomes I get. And you'll get a very different result if you channel your inner Darth Vader versus your inner Bob Burg.
I'm gonna have to remember that in my next prompt. Craft the following script as Darth Vader, and doing a Simpsons shot.
Yeah. And honestly, it helps you sharpen your skills, because you're playing with the tool, not working. You're not holding it serious. You're learning. It can be as playful or as serious as you want it to be. Sorry, Rain.
I was disappointed. No problem. It's all good. I was disappointed when you mentioned Michelangelo and you weren't talking about a Ninja Turtle.
Well, here's the thing. If you wanted, you can spin something and say, give me an answer as the evil Shredder, or I can't remember the rat's name. I liked him. He was wise. Splinter, yes. Master Splinter.
Yep.
But yes, sometimes my answers are more Michelangelo the turtle than Michelangelo the sculptor. So
I'm going to 180 this. Every one of us have tried to talk to a cable company or a telephone company. And an early generation of something AI comes on, and the tree is very, very annoying. And we had to live through that, and I absolutely get that. As a user, not as a deliverer of service, but as a user, how do I receive AI to sort better from the provider so that I'm asking better questions that are going the right place?
I love that. And I'm going to give you a 360 answer on that, because I think that one could be really fun. First and foremost, I want to stress, from the business point of view, the point of AI is not to push your customers away. It's to figure out what friction points can we remove? How can we add better service? So it needs to evolve constantly. Now, believe it or not, I use AI when I have to deal with somebody else's AI, and I will go into Chat GPT and say, I'm going to pick on GoDaddy because they seem to cause me the most friction in my personal life. I don't deal with a lot of other utilities, but GoDaddy is my friction point. And I know for a fact that they have an AI gatekeeper.
Yep.
So certain things I know that their gatekeeper can help me with. So I ask ChatGPT, I'll say, here's the problem I'm having. Let's just say the first response I have is a little salty and probably not fit for an audience with kids in it. And I'll say, could you help me make this more productive? And so it'll ask me some questions. And then when get the chat bot on, I can copy paste and go from there. So that's how I do it. The other thing I do, and this helps me avoid a lot of tech support, is I will ask ChatGPT to go to their forums, wherever. And by the way, this is absolutely my favorite thing. Go to their forums and give me 3 possible solutions to this challenge. So that has zero to do with the company. It's, and here's the thing. If I was the company, I would be looking at these user forums and mining them, because every complaint in there is an opportunity for us to solve a problem. And spoiler alert, I really, really get angry when, they outsource their service to some other part of the world, to somebody where I can't understand what they're saying, let alone there's a lot of call centers where there's a lot of background noise. And I'm like, from a consumer point of view, I'm already pissed off by the time I call you. Don't poke my nerves and make me angrier. So if I can self-serve and find answers, I'm going to do that all day long. So rather than me dealing with call centers, I use help and support boards. I'm not a fan of Reddit. I think a lot of people on Reddit just want to be there to complain. But if you have a problem with something, I use a ChatGPT prompt and I'll say, go to this subreddit and help me find the answer to this question. So that way I don't spend hours scrolling through rants and random stuff.
I think any of us that are 60, whenever we hear AI, at some level we hear, I'm sorry, I can't do that for you, Dave. But that's the people who are, ask your father about what I just said. But here's a question, assume broad stroke, not you and your business,
Yeah.
but our society. What if we are using AI well, and it's not dystopian? If we're using AI well, how do we re-release our creativity? How do we release our resources so that we're on a higher plane, and so that we are better using our 70 hours better in a perfect world? Tell me a story.
Well, I have a view, and it actually annoys a lot of people, because a lot of people want to say AI is going to take my job. I say, please, I want it. But the reality is, what I see, AI is going to take away, and this is going to be the biggest disruption that humanity has ever seen in a very, very long time. It's going to take away the belief that somehow time equals value.
Okay.
And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. We talk about wage, so many things you can't possibly know is going to happen, but everybody's worried about the low-level worker who's going to be displaced. That's probably been a problem since humanity first started out. You've got low-level people, they're going to get replaced by some sort of technology. That's entirely the wrong question. Because I believe if we can eliminate the tie of I work X hours a week to earn Y dollars so that I can live a lifestyle that's above poverty, if we take away that need to perform time, because again, the myth is that time equals value. If we focus on how much value can you deliver, and that generates your pay, then I think we can be a society where we are focused on, for what it's worth. I spend hours thinking about thinking. How can I think better? How can I think differently? I don't know that, some people say, oh, we'll just be a bunch of, be like an art commune and we'll be a bunch of artists sitting around painting and stuff. But the reality is AI can help us think better, faster, and at a higher level. So I believe that what we'll see, and I think this is going to be in the near term, the next 5 years, I think humanity is going to realize that it's not about how much time we put in, but it's about the quality that we put in. And honestly, that comes back to being effective versus efficient. If we're effective, what else could we do? And yes, there's going to be people who say, oh, I'm going to go sit on the couch and watch TV. But I believe that you're going to see people who, if you think about it, in the ancient Roman days and ancient Greeks, they actually sat around and pondered things. When was the last time you had time to ponder anything other than, crap, what do I need for lunch? Okay, I got to go run these errands. We're always doing. I think it would be good for humanity to just take a beat and sit and realize that we're human beings. I think we could think at a higher level, and I think we could break out of a lot of the current paradigm that doesn't serve us anymore.
So I'm going to go farther. There is a belief that a government will have to subsidize the new underclass. And I don't really want to go there. But let's assuming that there's a disconnect like on Star Trek, where, oh no, we don't use money in the 23rd century. How do you as the individual say, okay, I'm going to have my rent paid and I'll be able to make a car payment anyway. Now, what do I want to be when I grow up? How do we proactively start asking these questions, even from ChatGPT?
Well, I'm going to use an old school example. A friend of mine is a blacksmith. Yes, process that for half a second. Back in the day, everybody was worried because in the early days, 1800s, the blacksmith was the center of a town. The blacksmith had all the power because if you didn't have a blacksmith, you didn't have horseshoes, et cetera, et cetera. When the cars came out, most blacksmiths, because they were good with their hands, became mechanics. So the thing is, there's always going to be a layer of society that doesn't want to conform, doesn't want to fit in, and they will end up being marginalized. What we can do with AI is, first and foremost, I have two boys, one in junior high, one in high school. I'm teaching them to be the people who know how to use AI. So that is my first piece of tangible advice. AI is not going to take your job. Somebody who knows how to use AI will. So we need to fear the AI savvy, not AI as a tool. But the other thing, and this is going to sound really, really harsh, and I apologize if you get hate mail over this. If you're not willing to learn AI, you need to learn how to live on the fringes. Again, believe it or not, in the province of Alberta, we have an entire community of flat earthers, and they believe that the earth is flat and, all this space stuff is a modern conspiracy. They have to learn to live with their beliefs. They do. But
I understand.
It's not our proudest moment, Wayne. It's when you see the billboards, it's like, oh, please just stop. Sorry, I also had somebody tell me that dinosaurs didn't exist and it was just a conspiracy. And I'm like, I don't know where to go with this, but there are always going to be people who want their beliefs to be so simple they don't have to change, and they're going to have to learn to adapt. There are other people, and I'm not quite there, but they're going to want to go full on matrix and just plug me into the system and let me be a battery. We all need to figure out, and this is really, really, truly my biggest advice. Do you want to be part of the system? Do you want to fight the system, or do you want to thrive leading the system? I personally would rather lead it than either fight it or thrive, just barely survive.
What I'm taking from this whole thing and what you've discussed earlier, and I'm going to tie it back to what you do. I find is, regardless of whether we're talking AI, if I want to live a solitary life and I'm going to be up by Tuktuk in the northern climates, off I go. Not everybody wants to do that because not everybody's equipped physiologically, psychologically, and so forth. So whatever your diet is in your life, and I'm not just talking food, whatever you want. There are people who go into space. Yeah, you know what? I'm good, and not that I wouldn't mind a good rocket journey. You get to lift it, but is that my thing? Yeah, I'm good. Or bungee cord jumping, etc. So all the folks that are on a fringe moment, there you go. But when you're building an LLM, and again, I just learned something new. Tell the Chat GPT or whatever AI platform you're using, go out and hunt out some information from the groups that actually go in there. I had not worked that out, so I'm always continuously learning. So I appreciate that. When you're working for a business, do you also incorporate in of, hey, I got my Michelangelo hat on here, got a bit of Buddha, got a little bit of Jesus rolling through here, and well, maybe a bit of rock and roll with a bit of Robin Williams, just to just to stir the pot, so I have a good soup view. But do you put in a piece in there going, okay, you understand this now? Here's the business. How do I stay current? How do I keep where do I have to tweak myself? And it's, like, it's like if you're doing exercise, you have a spotter, you get a coach. Yeah, if you lift it this way, you lift the weights this way, you'll get a better gain. Otherwise, carry on my wayward son. How do you build that last leg of the journey and it has an improvement cycle that's beneficial for all?
Well, the great news is this is where humans come in. So I mentioned that augmented intelligence earlier, and basically what I do, and I have a process in there. So I always incorporate feedback loops. So my human is always training its AI counterpart, but I also incorporate what I call optimization steps. So based on real-time data, and this is, again, it's up to, we're freeing up a human so they've got more time on their hands, and I'll give you a practical example. Let's say you're an accountant. You can try to keep up with all of the pronouncements and all of the latest and greatest things. I create a research AI that'll do all that research, distill it. I still, as the human, have to decide what of that research I want to absorb, what I want to consume. And what I can do with my AI is then based on, so I have levels. So I do bleeding edge research where I'm literally looking at the outliers going, I wonder if this is going to be a thing or not. I do cutting edge research, which is, still on the frontier. And then, so I use the technology adoption curve and I look at where people are. So depending on my client, I'll help them understand how much innovation they need. If you're an accountant and you have a small practice with small businesses, you don't need to be on the bleeding edge. You definitely don't need to be on the cutting edge. You can be sort of at the front of mainstream, basically. So I have levers on everything I do. And I see it like a bit of a sound mixing board, a little more bass, a little less treble, whatever it needs. But
More
more, and of course, more random songs and sounds and things. But, I see it like almost as a conductor. You're going to say, I really need that shaker thing that makes that really cool raindrop sound. But basically, that's the way I approach it is if I create a process today, whatever my process is, that's what I'm doing. I'm turning AI into processes. I will have when am I going to revisit this process to update it? And so that's the good news is humans will always be around. And for the foreseeable future, they'll be upgrading those processes.
I understand that you have a podcast, and based on whether you are obviously you're a podcast listener, you wouldn't be hearing us. So based on that, what's your podcast? And if they want to dip deeper in the pool, how they get a hold of you, Jeff?
I love it. Well, thank you, Wayne. My podcast is called The Lighthouse Sessions, and basically it's where I have visionary entrepreneurs, what makes them unique, and basically I'm shining their light into the world. And the best place to find it is on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. We're also on Spotify and YouTube, but my business website is pharosbusiness.com.
That is awesome. I want to say thank you to Jeff Borschowa, my co-host Wayne Pratt, and you're the Knack for Business listeners. Listen, if you're facing burnout, you're facing AI, and you're facing confusion, let Jeff help you. He can help walk you through. Maybe you need a model that just works for you on your behalf with a bit of a touch of Michelangelo in with some Yoda wisdom. What's it tell you?
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KATIVISIGH.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motivateyou.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8, and the letter u.ca, or his website, motivateyou.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from @Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer: please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.